Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again in this YouTube astrological segment. I'm going to be talking about astrology and the health of Nate Robinson. Now, as some of you may have heard of Nate Robinson, he's a former NBA basketball player. He played professional basketball for a number of teams. You could say he was very peripatetic. He was with a number of teams, I think like 8 teams or something he played for. And I mean, he was just all over, and typical, Sun in Gemini, Moon in Gemini as well. It's like the home really being very mercurial, to say the least. But he right now, Nate Robinson is dealing with chronic, I'm sure I'm saying this right, chronic kidney disease, CKD, and otherwise known as renal disease. And he's in dire need of a kidney transplant in order to survive. This based on a recent, report he has made. And my prayers go out to him right now, and that he does get this replacement. And the fact if he still needs it at this time, it just shows you how difficult and arduous the process is, apparently, to actually get a kidney replacement. I'm going to talk a little bit about his natal chart, and how it may have been tied into his life in basketball. And also I'm going to talk about his certain situation with the kidney issues, and how the natal chart and even maybe some transits may have been playing some role in as far as his kidney issues go. Now, the thing is, I want to talk about first about his natal chart, a little about his life in basketball. It's very compelling when I look at a lot of the the placements, because it does really show how he was able to do what he did. Being only like 5'9", he's everything but an anomaly. He won the slam dunk contest, I believe, 3 times. Being 5 feet 9 inches tall, I mean, that is actually really just phenomenal for an athlete to be able to do that and to elevate his game, no pun intended, of course. And what I'm seeing when I look at his chart, okay, first off, I mean, I don't have his time of birth, so I had to improvise once again and do a solar / sunrise chart, and I put the sun at the same spot as the ascendant in the chart. And Sun and Moon, both in mercurial Gemini, shows the conscious unconscious side being the same. He's somebody as far as the Sun reflects our basic fundamental character. So somebody, as far as his basic personality goes, I'm sure very animated, spirited, again mercurial, maybe fickle, and somebody that's versatile, loquacious, very good dexterity. That could have, I'm sure that played a role in his ability in terms of his dexterity with his hands on the basketball court. And the Moon being in Gemini as well shows that unconscious side, the same as the sun sign. And you just need, and the Moon is about our emotional needs, so the emotional need to assimilate, disseminate information, that need for mental stimulation, and being able to do many different things. I'm sure being versatile, doing manifold things is very important to him on an emotional level. And some other things I see in his chart, okay, he's got Mercury in Taurus, so even though he's got a lot of that mutable, flexible energy with the Sun and the Moon both being in Gemini, his way of thinking may be a little bit more inflexible and intransigent compared to the typical Gemini Sun Moon person. He's probably more resolute in terms of his thinking, at this, in terms of, when he has an idea, has a belief on a certain subject, and more methodical in his thinking process, I would say, too, than the typical Gemini Sun. But Mercury in Taurus can be very stable in terms of the thinking, though, and in the rational mind. Now, What I noticed too, based on the the solar sunrise time, I do say that he has Uranus, the solar sunrise chart. He has Uranus in Sagittarius, conjunct the seventh house cusp, and it's opposing his sun in Gemini. He was born May 31st, 1984, and the thing about that, what's interesting is that Uranus in Sagittarius, though generational by itself, might give some unusual ability for sports, or maybe something where the person may actually be somewhat unorthodox in whatever they're doing that's sports related, and hitting that seventh house cusp. Seventh house is competition, so it's something unusual he was able to do in terms of sports competition. And the fact that, I mean, being 5'9" and an NBA player by itself, let alone winning that slam dunk contest, I believe 3 times. And he also has, again, the Uranus and Sagittarius opposing the Sun in Gemini, so that can give a little bit, nonconformist, rebellious type nature, a little bit paradoxical aspect, because, people that have the Sun square or opposite Uranus in their natal chart, may have difficulty, in, listening, to authority at times, but may also have difficulty in others dictating to them what needs to be done. And Uranus, generational, is in freedom-loving, Sagittarius. He has it retrograde, so it's more, it may not be as obvious to, compared to somebody that would have Uranus direct in their chart. Now, another thing about him, as well, I notice what's interesting is that the Sun makes an inconjunct aspect to Jupiter in Capricorn. Now, the thing about that, what's interesting is that Jupiter has a connection with sports, and the Sun is about our life and the physical body and vitality. I think what's interesting, and can play a role, the physical body, the appearance to some degree. Now, in conjunction, astrology can be about adjustments. So it's interesting that he became a pro basketball player, but yet he did have to make, an adjustment away based on his physical stature. The fact he was 5'9", he obviously had to improvise a lot and be able to, create shots which would be harder for, much taller, bigger defenders to defend. So I think that's where you see that adjustment right there in something sports related and connected with the physical body. I wouldn't be surprised, since Nate Robinson is a little bit shorter than the typical Gemini. He may have an ascendant that's shorter, like Cancer or Taurus. I don't know his time of birth. I couldn't find a chart with his actual time of birth online. Now, some other things you want to look at his chart as well. The Yod configuration he does have, with involving the Sun in Gemini and Saturn in Scorpio, and also the Jupiter, being in conjunct the Sun as well. And a Yod configuration in astrology consists of um, a sextile between two planets, and those two planets in the sextile aspect both making an inconjunct to the focal point. And the focal point in this case is the Sun in Gemini, and Saturn in Scorpio and Jupiter and Capricorn both make the inconjunct aspect to his Sun in Gemini. So, the thing about that is, the Sun being the focal point, that is the point of accomplishment and achievement. But Jupiter being involved, I think that plays a role in doing something sports related. Saturn reflects the career, and Saturn in Scorpio working hard, by being resourceful and, being resilient, showing inordinate willpower. Doing, it's also a career where he had to, show a lot of passion, being very passionate about. And the thing about that is, and with the Sun in Gemini being the focal point, that shows, the life, what he was able to do physically, being very dexterous, I would say, on the basketball court, being able to use the hands very well, being very quick-witted. And now the next thing I want to get to, talk about some natal placements in his chart, that could be tied in, sadly, with his, the kidney issues he's going through, because he said he is in dire need of a kidney transplant. And now, Nate Robinson does have, the one thing that stands out to me, again, it's a solar sunrise chart, so it's based on the sunrise time, that he has Pluto in Libra at 29 degrees retrograde in the 6th house of health. So the thing about that is, okay, now Pluto in Libra by itself, though generational, can indicate some kind of surgery or trauma associated with the kidneys. He also has Libra on the 6th house cusp in the solar sunrise chart, and that by itself can indicate health-related issues involving the kidneys. Pluto is also about, it can be connected with surgery, and he has it at the 29th degree, which is a critical degree. It's also the full culmination of the placement. So this can emphasize why this is very critical. Retrograde to me indicates that there can be some regression in this at some point in time, or some delays. And again, it seems like it's been a very, laborious, arduous task in him just getting this kidney transplant, unfortunately. And the thing too is, as well, when I look at this, and Pluto again about surgery, transformation. So this is something, and two, sadly, keep in mind that Pluto is connected with death as well in the 6th house of health. He also has, based on the solar sunrise time, he has the ruler of the 8th house cusp, which is Saturn, in the 6th house cusp of health, and that could indicate a death due to a chronic illness. So, it's imperative that he does get, some help on this, immediately. And again, my prayers do go out to Nate Robinson and, the close friends and family, that are going through this ordeal with him. What I noticed too is that he has, Venus is associated with the kidneys, and he has Chiron making a conjunction to it. So that's another indicator of dealing with physical related issues, suffering connected with the kidneys. So, and another thing, and I'm just looking to see if there's any transits, coming up, which could bode, possibly well for him. Well, he's got, the transit Jupiter, I believe, will be in Gemini later this year. And if it does conjunct his Sun at that time, that could manifest in something more promising and auspicious as far as his physical health goes. But he does need to get something, obviously, much sooner than later, and that's something to to look at in terms of as far as his physical health goes in the future. And I noticed too he's got Mars and Scorpio. Mars and Scorpio, it's in its dignity there, and it also shows having Mars and Scorpio and in the 6th house of work. Mars and Scorpio by itself can be capable of doing things that may have seemed insurmountable or unattainable to most. And again, he was somebody that was like 5 foot. He's 5'9" and played professional basketball, considered a star by many. Even though he was very peripatetic, he bounced around with a number of teams, but he won the slam dunk contest, I believe, on 3 occasions, and that's everything but an anomaly. He was an exceptional athlete, an exception, for what he did, because pro basketball, very hard. Well, it's hard to be successful in a professional sport to begin with, and doing that of diminutive stature as well made it even more increasingly difficult for him. And I noticed too he also had transit Jupiter had recently, conjoined his Mercury, so that tells me there's an awful. It really increased a lot of communications, big time, and I'm sure a lot of it pertaining, to the issues that regarding his kidney disease that he is, going through currently, and he's only 39 years old. And the thing is, and I'm not saying this to be morbid or anything, but I've talked about this in previous videos, and I'll say it again. Sadly, Gemini and Virgo people often leave our mundane plane earlier than average age, and I think this is not the case with him, being a sun and moon in Gemini. Now, I don't know if the moon would have been in Cancer if he was born like exceptionally late at night, but however you look at it, the percentages say that his moon is in Gemini, sun and likely moon in Gemini. And I don't know what his ascendant is, but anyway, again, my prayers do go out to him, close friends and family members, and I hope he does find something sooner than later. I don't know this 100%, but I believe he's in that Seattle, Washington area, and hopefully there, if that's where he is or wherever he's at, that somebody out there is going to have the heart and do something to give him that kidney that he needs. I don't know. If you're surviving on one good kidney, I'm not sure how that works. I don't know if that means you have the one good kidney and the bad one in you, or you just have the one kidney and you don't have the other kidney period in you. But either way, he still needs the kidney transplant. Anyway, people, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment. Until next time, Edwin Learnard saying stay well.